You can't prove it, he smirked. I don't have to, I said, staring at the screen that would end him. The timestamp's due. My name is Arthur Hale, but everyone calls me Art. And I was walked out in front of half the company for something I didn't do. Fired and escorted out like a criminal, while my supervisor watched with the satisfied calm of a man who thought he'd just buried me alive. I'm posting here because I genuinely need to know if I'm the one who messed up, because for a while there I started to doubt my own memory, my own judgment, even my own character. The story is long, and I'm going to write it like I lived it, one breath at a time, the way it kept happening, the way the facts came out in slow, nasty drips that never stopped. People keep telling me I should move on now, but when your name becomes a whisper in the hallway and then a headline in an internal HR report, it doesn't just evaporate. It sticks to your skin. I worked in IT for a long time. I'm not the guy who hotwires rules. I'm the guy who writes the rules down, gets them approved, makes sure everyone understands them, and then gets blamed when they ignore them. I'm the administrator who doesn't take shortcuts, because shortcuts become breaches, and breaches become disasters, and disasters become careers ending, marriages straining, mortgages sweating. I'm the one who keeps other people's mistakes from turning into public shame. And I was good at it. Not in a boastful way, in a quiet way, in the way where people didn't notice me until something broke, and then I'd fix it, and then they'd forget I existed again. That was fine. That was the deal. Until my new supervisor decided I was the obstacle between him and whatever it was he wanted. His name was Brant Klein, mid-40s, always dressed like he was about to get photographed for a corporate brochure, always holding a coffee he never seemed to drink, always speaking in that confident half-whisper like he didn't need to raise his voice because the universe was obligated to lean in and listen. He'd joined our company about a year and a half ago as Director of Infrastructure and Security, which sounded impressive, and maybe on paper it was, but in practice he was the kind of manager who used security as a club instead of shield. He didn't care about protecting systems. He cared about controlling people. At first, I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. New leader, different style, maybe he's under pressure. I've seen it before. The first month he asked a lot of questions, and I answered them. The second month he asked for visibility, and I built dashboards. The third month he asked for efficiency, and I streamlined workflows without cutting corners. The fourth month he started asking for things that made my stomach tighten. It started small, the way manipulation always does. A casual ask, hey, can you do me a favor? With a smile that made you feel petty for saying no. We were in a glass conference room, the kind with walls that looked transparent, but somehow still made you feel trapped. He had pulled up a spreadsheet of audit readiness tasks, like he was presenting to an invisible board. Brent, Art, quick question. I'm looking at our admin access. It's siloed. Me, it's role-based. Siloed is the point. Brent, right, but it's limiting. If you're out, and we need to move fast, we could be blocked. Me, we have break glass accounts for that. There's a documented process. 2-person authorization. That's standard. Brent, sure, but break glass is dramatic. I'm talking day to day. Like if I need to approve a policy push or review something in the MDM console. Me, you already have director level access. You can review. You can approve. You don't need domain admin. He leaned back, tapped his pen like he was thinking hard, then gave me the look like I was being stubborn for sport. Brent, okay, let me put it plainly. I want your admin credentials. Just this once. I need to get in and see something the way you see it. I actually laughed because I thought he was joking. No one in their right mind asks for that directly. That's the one thing everyone in IT learns early. You don't share privileged credentials. Not with anyone. Not your boss. Not the CEO. Not the Pope. The minute you do, you might as well hand over your name and say, please pin your sins on me. Meh, no. I can screen share and walk you through whatever you need. I'll even stay late, but I'm not handing over my credentials. His smile didn't vanish, but something behind it cooled. Brent, Art, don't make this difficult. Me, I'm not. The policy makes it difficult. It's written that way on purpose. Brent, policies are guidelines. Leaders need flexibility. Me, security policies aren't guidelines. They're controls. If we weaken them for convenience, we won't have them when we need them. He stared at me for a long second, and then he stood up, collected his laptop like he was ending a negotiation. Brant, fine. We'll do it your way. I didn't notice, back then, that he said it like a promise. I wish I could tell you that was the moment I knew he'd try to destroy me, but I didn't. I went back to my desk and did what I always did. Worked. Tickets, patch cycles, identity access reviews, vendor calls, a migration plan we were doing to replace an aging file server cluster. Normal stuff. Boring stuff. Safe stuff. But after that meeting, the temperature changed. He stopped inviting me to certain calls. He'd schedule meetings without me and then forward me the notes afterward with passive little comments like FYI, since he couldn't make it. I hadn't been invited. He'd ask my teammates questions in group chat that he knew I'd answer. And if I did answer, he'd ignore it and respond to someone else with great point, like he'd just discovered the insight himself. He'd start sentences with "some people think," and then describe my position like it was a childish opinion. And then the concerned coworkers started. We call them flying monkeys for a reason. They don't think they're doing harm. They think they're helping the powerful person who tells them who to target. They carry messages. They apply social pressure. They isolate you. They make you feel like the room has turned against you without ever seeing the hand that flipped the switch. My coworker Dana, who used to eat lunch at my desk and gossip about bad TV, stopped doing that. She'd pass by, see me, and do that tight smile like she was trying not to be seen. Then one day she lingered, eyes darting. Dana, hey, quick question. Me, sure. Dana, Brent was saying, are you like, okay? Me, what does that mean? Dana, no, it's nothing. He's worried you're stressed, that you're getting defensive. Me, defensive about what? Dana looked uncomfortable, like she just realized she'd stepped into something sticky. Dana, like, access stuff. He said you're protective. Me, I'm protective of the company, yes. Dana, right? Right. Just wanted to check. Then she left, and I sat there with this uneasy feeling that I'd become a story being told about me in rooms I wasn't in. I tried to handle it the adult way. I documented. I sent follow-up emails confirming decisions. I updated our access policy training deck and offered to run a refresher session for leadership. I thought, if Brent's pushing because he doesn't understand, I can educate. If he's pushing because he wants control, I can make the controls clearer so there's less wiggle room. That was naive. The first real punch landed on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were patch day and I had a standing rhythm. Arrive early, check overnight alerts, review vulnerability scans, coffee, then kick off updates and waves. That morning, everything looked normal. Our endpoint management console showed healthy check-ins. No unusual auth attempts. Firewall logs within baseline. I even remember thinking, for once, I might have an uneventful day. Around 11:30, Brent slacked me. Brent, need you in HR at 1 o'clock. Mandatory. No context. No subject line. Just that. I replied immediately. Me. What's it regarding? Brent, you'll find out. That's when my stomach started to drop. The phrase, you'll find out, isn't professional. It's a weapon. At noon, I went to lunch. Nothing fancy, just a sandwich from the place across the street. I ate in my car like I often did because it was quiet and I could shut my brain off for 20 minutes. I checked my phone. No new alerts, no emergencies, no reason to rush. I walked back in at 12:50 and the atmosphere hit me like a cold wave. People weren't just avoiding me. They were looking away fast when I made eye contact, like my face might implicate them. The receptionist, who usually said hi, stared at her monitor like it was suddenly fascinating. I got to my desk, and there was a sticky note on my keyboard. HR. Now. My heart started doing that weird slow thud where it feels like it's hitting your ribs from the inside. I stood up, straightened my shirt without realizing I was doing it, and walked toward the HR wing. Outside the HR conference room were 2 security guards. Not our usual building security who smiled and chatted about football. These guys had the posture of people hired to be intimidating. One of them shifted when I approached, hand near his belt like I might bolt. I looked around, thinking, am I being pranked? Is this some awful training exercise? Brent was inside, sitting beside our HR manager, Melissa, and our general counsel, A woman named Priya who rarely appeared unless something was very wrong. Melissa's face was stiff, sympathetic in a practiced way. Priya's expression was unreadable. Brent looked calm, almost bored. Melissa, Arthur, have a seat. Me, what's going on? Priya, we're investigating a serious policy violation involving your workstation and network activity. My brain snagged on the words. My workstation. Serious. Violation. I had a sudden flash of every phishing email I'd ever warned people about. Every time I told someone not to click suspicious links, and I thought, did I miss something? Did I get compromised? Because if so, I'd be mortified, but at least it would be an accident. An attack. Something external. Me, okay. What activity? Brent sighed like he was tired of my ignorance. Brent, we received an anonymous complaint. Me, about what? Priya slid a folder across the table, turned it so I could see. Inside were printed screenshots, file paths, a browser history snippet, a time-stamped list of downloads, and words I didn't think I would ever see associated with me. Illegal content. Contraband. Policy violation. Termination level misconduct. My hand started to shake, and I hated that. I hated giving them any sign that I was scared. But I was terrified because I knew what those accusations did. They didn't just get you fired. They made you unemployable. They made your neighbors look at you differently. They made your friends quietly distance themselves. They made your mother's voice on the phone go thin with confusion when she asked, Arthur, is this true? Melissa, Arthur, can you explain why this material was accessed and stored on your corporate device? Me, it wasn't. Brent, it's on your machine, Art. Me, then my machine was compromised. Or someone put it there. Brent leaned forward, hands folded, voice soft like he was trying to help a child understand. Brent, are you saying someone framed you? Me, I'm saying I didn't do this. Priya, we have digital evidence showing download activity associated with your user session. Me, let me see the raw logs. Brent, we already pulled what we needed. Me, I need to see the raw logs. I'm the admin. I know what to look for. Priya, you are the subject of the investigation. You don't get to investigate yourself. That sentence made the room tilt. Because it wasn't just about the content. It was about control. They were cutting me off from the only thing that could exonerate me. The systems I knew better than anyone. Me, this is insane. Check my badge logs. I was out at lunch. Brent, your badge logs won't change what's on your device. Me, it will change whether I could have been at my desk when this supposedly happened. Melissa, Arthur, please answer the question directly. Why is this content on your device? Me, it's not mine. I didn't access it. I didn't download it. I didn't view it. If it's there, it was planted. Brent's smile twitched. Brent, we take these accusations seriously. That's why security is here. One of the guards shifted again, like to remind me I was outnumbered. Priya, at this time, you're being placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. Effective immediately, your access is suspended. Meh, no. If you suspend my access, I can't help you figure out what happened. Priya, that is the point. Brent, we'll collect your badge. Your laptop. Your phone. My mouth went dry. Company phone, yes. Laptop, yes. But badge? They were treating me like I'd already been convicted. Me, I want this documented. I want a copy of the allegations. Melissa, you'll receive a summary. For now, we need you to cooperate. Me, I am cooperating. I'm telling you it's not mine. Brent, Art, stop making this worse. That's the thing about being innocent. People tell you to stop making it worse, as if defending yourself is the offense. They walk me back to my desk with security on both sides, like I might grab a server and sprint out the door. Everyone watched. Some pretended not to, but I saw the reflections in monitors, the quick glances, the whispered names. Dana was there. She saw me. Her eyes widened, then she looked down so fast it hurt. At my desk, one of the guards stood behind me while I packed my personal items into a small box. A photo of my dad, a stress ball shaped like a tiny globe, a cheap mug that said, I fix what you break, and a notebook full of handwritten diagrams. Brent stood nearby, arms crossed, supervising like he was overseeing the removal of hazardous waste. Me, this is wrong. Brent, you did this to yourself. I looked at him, and for a second, I thought I might actually lunge across my desk and grab his collar. Not to hurt him, just to shake him until the truth fell out. But I didn't, because I don't do impulsive things. I don't retaliate illegally. I don't break rules just because someone else is breaking me. They escorted me out. In the parking lot, the cold air hit my face and I realized I was sweating. I sat in my car with my hands on the steering wheel, box on the passenger seat, and my mind just stalled. Like my operating system had blue screened. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my coworker Jared, one of the guys I'd mentored when he joined IT. Jared, dude, what happened? Are you okay? I stared at it for a long time, then typed. Me. They say illegal content on my machine. I didn't do it. 3 dots. Then, Jared, that's bad. HR says we're not supposed to talk about it. And just like that, he was gone too. Not even because he believed it, but because fear makes people choose silence. I drove home in a haze. When I walked in, my girlfriend, Naomi, looked up from the kitchen with a smile that faded instantly when she saw my face in the box. Naomi, Art, what is that? Me, I got put on leave. Naomi, leave? For what? I sat down at the table and told her. I tried to keep my voice steady, like it was a technical issue, like I was describing a server outage. But my hands were trembling again. When I said the words illegal content, Naomi's eyes filled with tears. Naomi, no, that's not you. Me, I know. Naomi, they can't just. Me, they did. She came around the table and hugged me so hard I almost couldn't breathe. That's when I realized I'd been holding my breath since that HR room. I exhaled, and it felt like something cracked inside my chest. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying the timeline. The lunch, the sticky note, the security guards, the screenshots. As an IT admin, I knew how evidence could be faked. Screenshots are theater. Anyone can edit them. File timestamps can be manipulated on a local machine if you know what you're doing. Browser history can be injected or altered if you're an admin and malicious. But there was one thing that's harder to fake: immutable logs and systems you don't control. Vendor logs, badge access logs, email headers, MDM check-in records, firewall flows, CM events that are write once, read many. That's where the truth would be. But I also knew something else. If Brent had orchestrated this, he'd have planned for the obvious. He'd try to make the timeline match. He'd try to block me from accessing logs. He'd use HR as a shield. And he'd counted on one thing above all, that I'd panic and do something dumb. I didn't. The next morning, I woke up, showered, dressed like I was going to work, even though I wasn't allowed, and sat at my home desk with my personal laptop. I opened a document and started writing an incident report the way I would if I were still the admin responding to a breach. Date, time, parties involved, summary, evidence observed, requested actions. I included the fact that I was in an HR meeting at 1 o'clock, that I was escorted out, that my access was suspended. I included the lunch timeline. I included the names of everyone in that room. I included the fact that they refused to provide raw logs. Then I wrote the most important line. I formally request a legal hold on all relevant systems, including but not limited to email, endpoint management, file shares, proxy logs, badge access logs, surveillance footage, and administrative account audit logs, due to the potential for spoliation of evidence. Spoliation. That word is like a flare shot into the sky. It tells people, if you destroy this, you'll pay. I sent it to Priya, copied Melissa, and yes, I copied Brent. My hands were steady when I hit send. Within 10 minutes, Brent replied. Brent, Arthur, you are not authorized to direct investigative actions. Please refrain from interfering. Interfering, like asking them not to delete evidence, was interference. Priya replied shortly after. Priya, Arthur, your request is noted. We are preserving relevant materials. I didn't trust that. Not completely. So I did what I could legally do from the outside. I contacted an employment attorney. I didn't pick some billboard guy. I picked someone recommended by a friend in compliance who dealt with executive nonsense. Her name was Karen Sato, and when she answered the phone, her voice was calm in a way that made you feel like you'd finally found the adult in the room. Karen, Arthur, tell me exactly what they accused you of and what evidence they claim to have. I told her. Every detail. I tried not to editorialize. I stuck to facts. When I finished, there was a pause. Karen, did they terminate you? Me, not officially. Administrative leave. Karen, good. That means they're still building the story. We can interrupt it. Me, what do I do? Karen, first, you stop communicating directly with Brent. Second, you keep every message. Third, you write down your timeline. Fourth, you do not try to access company systems, even if you can. Fifth, we send a formal letter demanding preservation of evidence and requesting the investigative file. Me, they already have my devices. Karen, great. That means they can't claim you tampered after the fact. And if you're telling the truth, Arthur, they just took custody of the very thing that will prove you didn't do it. Her confidence was like oxygen. I hung up and started building my own timeline in excruciating detail. Receipts from lunch. GPS location data from my phone. The time my car started. The time I walked back in. The time Brent's message arrived. Every tiny data point that could anchor me to reality. Then, because I'm who I am, I went deeper. I thought about what kind of supervisor would do this and why. Brent had one of my credentials. I'd refused. He'd said, "We'll do it your way," like a promise. If he couldn't get my credentials, he'd need another way to move in my space. A shadow account, maybe something that looked like me but wasn't me. And he needed a motive. That part didn't come until later in one of those sick little drips of information. 3 days into my leave, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Not friends checking in. Not family. Co-workers. People I barely knew. "Hey, can you call me?" HR said, "Is it true?" And then the first flying monkey really landed. It was a guy named Martin from finance. We'd spoken maybe twice in my life. Suddenly, he was texting like we were buddies. "Martin, Art, man, I'm really sorry. I heard you got caught with something awful." Me, I didn't. It was planted. "Martin, look. Brent says it's pretty clear." Me, why are you talking to Brent about this? Martin, he's just trying to protect the company. Me, I protected the company for years. That's why I wouldn't share admin credentials. Martin, dude, don't go there. He said you were being difficult, and then this happened. People are connecting dots. Connecting dots. Making constellations out of lies. I didn't respond after that. I screenshotted it and saved it. Then Dana called. My stomach twisted when her name popped up. I answered because I wanted to believe at least one person would be normal. Dunno. Art, I'm so sorry. Me, do you believe it? A pause. Too long. Dada. I don't know. HR said it's serious. Man, do you believe I would do that? Her voice dropped. Dada. No, I don't. But people are scared. Brent is telling everyone we might be audited. That if we talk to you, we'll be involved. Me? So he's isolating me. Dana, he says you're manipulative. I almost laughed, but it came out like a choking sound. Me? I'm manipulative. Dana, I'm just telling you what he said. I'm not saying it's true. Me? Then tell me why you called. Dana incurled. Dana, he asked me to write a statement. My vision narrowed. Me? A statement about what? Dana, about your behavior. Like, if you ever made me uncomfortable. I felt sick. Me, did I? Dada, no, never. But he said it would help close the loop and protect the team. Me, he's building a character case. If he can't prove the content, he'll paint me as the kind of guy who would. Dana, what do I do? Me, tell the truth. Dana started crying. Dana, if I don't, he'll come for me. That's what flying monkeys don't tell you. They're afraid too. They're coerced. They're bribed with safety. Meh, Dana. Listen to me. Write down everything he asked you to do. Save the messages. And if you can, don't give him anything. If you have to respond, say you can't comment and you're uncomfortable. Dana, hey. Then she whispered something that chilled me. Dana, he said your account did the downloads during lunch. He said you did it when you thought you were alone. During lunch. Of course. He'd chosen the one window when my coworkers wouldn't have eyes on me. I thanked her, hung up, and sat there, staring at my wall. That night, Naomi found me in the dark living room. Naomi, you haven't eaten. Me, I'm not hungry. Naomi, Art, this is killing you. Me, they're killing me. She sat beside me and took my hand. Naomi, we're going to fight. Me, what if we can't? What if the company believes him? What if this follows me forever? Naomi squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. Naomi, then we sue. Then we burn it down the right way. But you don't fold. That's when I realized something. I wasn't just fighting for my job. I was fighting for my name. For the ability to walk into a room without people looking at you like you're contaminated. The next week, Karen sent a formal preservation letter. It was polite but sharp, the legal version of placing a knife on the table without picking it up. It demanded the investigative file, the specific allegations, and confirmation of evidence preservation. It also requested, explicitly, all logs associated with my user account, all administrative account creation records, and all badge access and camera records for the day in question. Priya responded with corporate language, but she agreed to provide portions of the file. She also reiterated that I was still on leave, not terminated. That would matter later. Then came the audit findings. Brent sent an email to Karen and me, copying Priya and Melissa, claiming they completed a preliminary audit and found multiple instances of policy circumvention in my history. He attached a PDF of screenshots, command lines, access logs, a spreadsheet listing unauthorized admin actions. When Karen forwarded it back to me, she wrote one line, "Do you recognize any of this?" I stared at the screenshots. Some looked like things I'd done, normal admin tasks, presented like crimes. Others were things I had never done in my life. Commands I wouldn't use. Paths that didn't match our environment. Dates that were oddly convenient. And the screenshots themselves looked off. Not obviously fake, but staged. Like someone had tried too hard to make them look authentic. I opened the PDF, zoomed in, and my old instincts kicked in. Font smoothing differences. Slight inconsistencies in timestamp formatting. A cursor in one screenshot that didn't align with the UI. A time zone indicator missing in one, but present in another. This wasn't an audit report. It was theater. Karen called me after she reviewed it. Karen, Arthur, this is not proof. This is a story. Me, it's fake. Karen, I'm not going to say that yet in writing. But I will say this. If they're willing to fabricate, they'll keep escalating. Which means we have to get ahead of them. Me, how? Karen, we request discovery early. We push for third-party logs. We force them to commit to a timeline. Me, third-party logs? Karen, yes. Anything outside their direct control. Your badge access is through a vendor. Their endpoint management is cloud-based. If they claim downloads happened at a certain time, the proxy log should show it. If they claim your session did it, the identity provider should show token issuance. If they created a shadow account, the directory audit logs will show it. I felt a spark in my chest. Not hope yet, but direction. Me, I want them to pull the server logs from the CM. Karen, we will. And if they resist, that tells us something. The company dragged their feet. Of course they did. They asked for more time. They said they needed to protect confidential information. They said they were still investigating. Meanwhile, Brent kept working the office like a puppeteer. I get a text from someone I used to joke with in the hallway. Coworker, hey, I heard you're in trouble. What did you do? Or worse. Coworker, I can't talk to you anymore. HR said it's a conflict, as if my mere existence was a liability. Then someone posted something on LinkedIn, not naming me, just vague enough to be cowardly. Reminder that integrity matters in IT. Access is privilege, not entitlement. The post got likes. People I knew liked it. People I'd helped liked it. I stared at their names and felt something cold and metallic settle in my gut. That was the first time things got really bleak, not because of legal strategy, but because of the human part. The social death. The slow realization that even if you win in the end, you can't unsee who flinched away when you needed them. A week after the HR meeting, I received a formal letter. Termination for gross misconduct, effective immediately, with a note that the company reserved the right to refer the matter to law enforcement. I read it twice, then a third time, feeling like I was reading about someone else. Naomi watched my face. Naomi, they fired you. Me, they fired me. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just felt hollow. Because this was the thing I'd feared. The career-ending stamp. The suspicion that would cling like smoke. Karen called me within minutes of receiving it. Karen, okay, Now we go loud. Not on social media. In court. Me. Court sounds like a lot. Karen. It is. But they've made a serious accusation. And if they think they can ruin your life without accountability, they're wrong. I swallowed. Me. What if they actually call the police? Karen. Then we respond. But their evidence is screenshots and an internal narrative. If we get the logs, we'll know what's real. That night, I sat in my home office and opened my browser history on my personal machine, searching for phrases like wrongful termination, illegal content planted device. It was surreal, like I was an outsider reading my own obituary. That's when I did what I'd sworn I wouldn't. I went on Reddit. Not to do anything dramatic, not to start a crusade, just to scream into the void, anonymously, in the only place where you can say this happened to me, and maybe someone will say, here's how they did it. My first post was simple. Border bones. I posted a short version first. This is the full story plus update. I was fired unfairly. I'm an IT admin. My boss accused me of policy violations and illegal content on my workstation. I didn't do it. I refused to share credentials. Now I'm fired. AITA for refusing to share admin credentials, even if it made my boss angry. I expected people to focus on the credentials question, and some did. But a lot of people zeroed in on the bigger issue immediately. Do not talk to HR without a lawyer. Ask for logs. Ask for badge access. This is a frame job. This is retaliation. Lawyer now. I sat there reading, feeling this strange mix of shame and relief. Shame that my life had become a Reddit thread. Relief that strangers could see what my own coworkers pretended not to. And the comments gave me something else. Language. Terms. Patterns. People describing exactly what Brent was doing. Flying monkeys, narrative building, character assassination, procedural abuse. It made me feel less crazy. The company's next move was to sue me. I'm not kidding. 2 weeks after my termination, Karen called me, and I could hear the disbelief in her voice. Karen, Arthur, they filed a lawsuit. Me? For what? Karen, breach of duty, alleged unauthorized access, and damages related to security remediation. They're claiming your actions forced them to spend money investigating and resecuring systems. Me? They fired me, and now they're suing me for defending myself? Karen, they're trying to flip the script. If they can make you the aggressor, you become the liability. And it intimidates you into silence. I sank into my chair. Me, how do we respond? Karen, we counterclaim. Me, I can't afford. Karen, Arthur, listen to me. Breathe. We're going to handle this. That was the moment my second Reddit post happened in my mind. The escalation. My boss is suing me. Help. Because it felt like that. Like the universe had looked at my wrecked life and decided to throw another truck at it. The lawsuit was full of dramatic language. Untrustworthy. Malicious. Abuse of privileged access. It painted me as a disgruntled admin who'd finally been caught. But what it didn't contain was something that would have been obvious if their story was true, the actual logs. Because they didn't want to attach the logs. They didn't want discovery. They wanted intimidation. Karen filed our response and demanded discovery anyway. And this is where the slow trickle of information turned from depressing to interesting. Because when lawyers get involved, people stop whispering and start documenting. And documentation is where liars die. The first crack appeared in the badge access logs. Karen subpoenaed them from the building security vendor. Not from my former employer. From the third party that managed the access control system. It took a little time, but when we got the response, Karen called me, and I could hear a smile in her voice for the first time. Karen, Arthur, where were you between 12:02 and 12:47 on the day in question? Me, at around noon, I went to lunch and returned about an hour later. Karen, your badge confirms you exited the building at 12:03 and re-entered at 12:49. My eyes closed and my shoulders sagged like I'd been holding a weight for weeks. Me, so I wasn't at my desk. Karen, correct. Now, that alone doesn't prove you didn't do it because remote access exists, but it breaks their narrative. Me, they said it happened during lunch. Karen, yes. And now they have to explain how you did it while physically out of the building. I felt something I hadn't felt since the HR meeting, the first real hint of victory. Then came the second crack, the endpoint management logs. Our company used a well-known cloud MDM platform. Karen subpoenaed the vendor logs for my device, including check-in history, policy pushes, app installs, and remote commands. The vendor responded with a clean, detailed timeline. And in that timeline, at 12:11, while I was sitting in my car eating a sandwich, there was a remote command sent to my device to install a package. Not by my user, by an administrative account I didn't recognize. A shadow. Karen, do you recognize this admin ID? Meh. No. Karen, can your boss create admin accounts? Me. He could. Yes, if he had the right access. Karen, and you refuse to share yours. Me. Yes. Karen, so he had to make his own. My mouth went dry, but this time it wasn't fear. It was the sensation of the truth surfacing like a body. We weren't done. Not even close. But the direction had changed. Brent wasn't hunting me anymore. We were hunting him. I'm continuing because a lot of you asked for the rest, and also because writing it out is the only way I can keep the sequence straight in my head without spiraling. When I left off, we had two things that were not feelings or my word versus his. One, badge logs from a third-party vendor proving I exited at 12:03 and re-entered at 12:49 on the day the download supposedly happened. Two, MDM vendor log showing a remote install command at 12 hours 10 minutes and 43 seconds from an admin account I didn't recognize. Those two facts didn't magically restore my job or my reputation, but they did something more important. They changed the burden. Brent's story was no longer obviously true. It was now needs explaining, and liars hate explaining. The anonymous complaint gets a face. Karen, my attorney, did a thing that felt small but ended up being huge. She demanded the company identify the source of the anonymous complaint. The company tried to dodge. They claimed confidentiality. They said it was reported through proper channels. They implied it came from an employee who feared retaliation. Karen's reply was simple. We are not requesting the identity of any whistleblower. We are requesting documentation of the report's origin and the chain of custody for the alleged evidence, including metadata. In normal person terms, show us where the complaint actually came from and who touched the evidence before it got to HR. That's when the company made their second mistake. They produced a report that looked like something copied into an HR case management system. The time it was submitted, the category is short description. But the metadata was thin, too thin. Like someone had scrubbed it. Karen didn't accuse them of scrubbing. She just said, provide the original submission in native format, including headers. Headers. Email headers. Form submission headers. Anything with machine-level traces. The company stalled again. And while they stalled, Brent got bolder. Brent's favorite weapon, audit theater. I started getting forwarded screenshots from ex-coworkers. Some sympathetic, some just nosy, of things Brent was saying in meetings. He'd stand up in front of teams and talk about integrity and trust and security culture. He didn't mention my name directly, but he didn't have to. Everyone knew who he meant. He also started introducing a new phrase into the air like perfume. We're cleaning house. And he kept telling people I'd been caught red-handed. Caught. Like I was in a bathroom stall with a crime scene. The biggest lie he spread was this. Art had admin-level access. He could hide anything. The only reason we found it is because I pushed for an audit. That was so perfectly crafted it almost made me admire it, if it wasn't ruining my life. He was planting the idea that I was powerful enough to cover tracks. He was brave enough to expose me. Anyone questioning it was naive. And then the flying monkeys upgraded from concerned to aggressive. The office turns hostile without me even being there. I got a call from Jared, the junior guy I'd mentored. He sounded like he was whispering even though he wasn't in the office. Jared, Art, they're locking down everything. Me, that's normal after an incident. Jared, no, I mean, they're saying your work was sloppy. That you left holes. That they're fixing the mess you made. Me, did Brent say that? Jared hesitated, and that told me everything. Me, Jared, listen. Don't answer with feelings. Answer with facts. Are they changing configs that were stable? Jared, yes. Me, Are they documenting the change requests? Jared, not like we used to. Me, are they disabling logs? He went quiet. Jared, I can't. Me, Jared, they told us not to export audit trails anymore. Only Brent can. My heart sank and then weirdly steadied. Because that wasn't the behavior of a company seeking truth. That was the behavior of someone controlling the evidence. Karen told me something that week that I've repeated 100 times since. People who are innocent preserve. People who are guilty cure it. The legal hold becomes a battlefield. Karen sent a second preservation letter, sharper this time. It explicitly named directory audit logs, account creation, group membership changes, admin role assignments, endpoint logs, EDR detections, process trees, remote commands, proxy logs, download activity, URL requests, CM events, write once ingestion records, email headers for all messages related to the investigation, HR case, system records, badge logs, and camera footage. The company responded that they were preserving relevant materials and would comply as appropriate. As appropriate is lawyer speak for, we'll do what we feel like until you force us. So Karen forced them. Discovery starts, and Brent starts sweating. Once the lawsuit and counterclaim were in motion, the tone shifted. It wasn't HR vibes anymore. It was court rules. We served discovery requests. We asked for the audit report Brent claimed proved my guilt in native format. Raw logs from the identity provider, token issuance, login events, MDM console audit logs, who executed the remote install command, EDR logs from my workstation, process tree around the alleged download, file system metadata, creation times, origin tags, any communication Brent had about me, the investigation, or cleaning house. And the company, for the first time, actually pushed back, not with confidence, but with irritation, because now they couldn't win by whispering in hallways. They had to produce facts. That's when Brent made his third mistake. He tried to help legal, meaning he tried to control the narrative even inside the legal process. Karen got an email chain through Discovery where Brent told Priya, we don't need to give them full logs. Just provide summaries. If we overproduce, it gives them ammo. Priya responded cautiously, basically saying they had to comply. But Brent kept pushing. That email alone didn't prove he framed me, but it proved something important. He was afraid of raw data. And raw data is where the timestamps live. The shadow admin account becomes a name. Remember the MDM admin ID that issued the remote install at 1211? Karen subpoenaed the vendor for the full audit record. Not just the command was issued, but which admin account issued it, the IP address used, the device/browser fingerprint, if available, the session start time, whether MFA was used, any related actions before and after. When we got it, Karen called me and said, Arthur, the admin account that issued the remote install is tied to Brent's corporate email. I didn't speak. I just stared at my wall. Karen, it's an account created 2 weeks before the incident. It was added to the device management admins group. The request ticket for it is interesting. Me, interesting how? Karen, the ticket is authored by Brent. Approved by Brent. My throat tightened. Me, he approved his own privileged account? Karen, yes. And whoever configured the workflow allowed self-approval, something your policies likely prevented. Me, I wouldn't allow self-approval. Karen, which is why he didn't go through you. There it was. The first clean line from motive to method. He wanted access. I refused. He created a back door. He used it during the one window I was out of the building. But we still needed to connect it to the contraband, because Brent's defense could still be. I issued a command for legitimate software, and Art downloaded illegal content on his own. So he kept digging. The EDR logs. The clinical takedown begins. If you've never seen EDR logs, endpoint detection and response, here's what they are in human terms. They show what ran, what spawned it, what files it created, what network calls it made, and when. Not in screenshot form. In hard event records. Karen demanded the native export. The company tried to give us a PDF. A PDF. Karen responded with one line. Native format, including event IDs. It took another week and a threat of motion to compel. Then the logs arrived, and I swear, it felt like watching an autopsy where the coroner calmly says, "Cause of death," not what you claimed. At 12 hours, 10 minutes, and 43 seconds, my workstation receives a remote command via MDM. At 12 hours, 11 minutes, and 2 seconds, a package installer executes under a system context. At 12 hours, 11 minutes, and 8 seconds, a scheduled task is created. At 12 hours, 11 minutes, and 10 seconds, that task is set to run at 12:18. At 12 hours and 18 minutes, the task runs, launching a script that pulls a compressed file from an external source. At 12 hours, 18 minutes, and 22 seconds, the file is extracted to a hidden directory. At 12 hours, 18 minutes, and 35 seconds, a browser instance is spawned in a way that didn't match normal interactive use. No user input, no foreground session. At 12:19, the Contraband file appears in a folder on my workstation. Not downloaded by me, placed by automation. That's when I felt something I didn't expect. Rage. Not at the company, not at HR, not at the co-workers who ghosted me. At Brent, specifically, for thinking I was stupid enough to be trapped by something this sloppy. Because yes, it was sophisticated enough to fool HR. But it was also lazy in an arrogant way. He assumed no one would ever see the real logs. The screenshots were edited, literally. The company had leaned on Brent's screenshots as proof. So Karen hired a forensic analyst to examine the PDF attachments. They found inconsistent metadata across images, evidence of cropping and resaving, timestamps that didn't match embedded system time. A couple images where the EXIF-style creation info indicated they were generated after my termination. Not by much, but enough. One of the screenshots Brent claimed came from the day of the incident was created 2 days later. 2 days later, when my devices were in their custody. Meaning, it wasn't an audit finding. It was a construction project. Why he needed me as the fall guy. We still didn't know Brent's deeper motive. Yes, he wanted control. Yes, he hated being told no. But framing someone with illegal content is not normal manager retaliation. That's nuclear. Karen kept pressing for communications. And in that flood of emails and chat logs, we found something that felt unrelated at first, until it didn't. A vendor email thread. A storage vendor had flagged unusual access patterns from our environment. It wasn't a breach alert. More like a polite, "Hey, your account is doing weird things at weird times." The account was a service account used for data exports. And guess who had been requesting access to that service account? Brent. Then we found a second thread, this time internal, where Brent had asked finance to approve an urgent consulting payment to a small LLC I'd never heard of. The description was vague, security advisory, but the payment amount was big. Not enormous, but enough to raise eyebrows. And the LLC had a mailing address that wasn't a real office. Karen did what lawyers do. She followed the money. The LLC traced back to a registered agent tied to Brent's brother-in-law. Side hustle. And suddenly the picture snapped into focus. There was a real audit coming. The vendor warnings were the tremors before the quake. Brent had been selling access, or data, or consulting his way into cash. And when the Real audit hit, he needed a scapegoat. He needed an unimpeachable admin whose access could explain everything. Someone like me. The big twist becomes the core story. Karen said out loud first, "Arthur, I think he's been running an unauthorized data access scheme. And he needed you blamed before the auditors started pulling logs." I felt nauseous. Me. So he nuked my life to save himself. Karen. Yes. Me. And the company helped him. Karen. The company followed the story he gave them because it was easier than admitting a director might be corrupt. That line stung because it was true. Companies don't like truth if truth requires them to admit they promoted the wrong person. The executive meeting where the trap flips. You're probably expecting a dramatic courtroom moment, but the real climax happened in a conference room, the same way my humiliation started. Once the EDR logs and MDM audit trails were undeniable, Karen demanded an executive-level settlement conference. The company agreed because at that point they could feel the tide. In the room were Priya, general counsel, Melissa, HR. Brent, of course. The CIO. A couple executive folks from risk/compliance. Karen. Me. Walking back into that building felt like walking into a place that had burned down my house. My hands were cold. My jaw hurt from clenching. Brent didn't look smug this time. He looked controlled, like a man holding a lid on boiling water. The CIO opened with corporate neutrality. CIO, we're here to understand what happened and resolve outstanding issues. Karen didn't waste time. She connected her laptop to the conference screen. Karen, we're going to walk through a timeline. Brent, this is unnecessary. We already got in. No, the timeline is the case. She put up the badge log first. Exit at 12:03, entry at 12:49. Then the MDM audit log. Remote install issued at 12:11 by an admin account tied to Brent. Brent's mouth tightened. Brent, I had legitimate reasons to. Karen, we'll get to your reasons. For now, the data. Then she put up the EDR process tree. Scheduled task created, script executed, file retrieved, extracted, contraband placed. She zoomed in on the key detail. The process ran under system context, not interactive user behavior. Then she brought up Brent's audit screenshot and placed it side by side with the native export, highlighting the mismatch. Karen, this screenshot was created on 2 days after incident, after Mr. Hale's termination letter was drafted. Brent's face reddened. Brent, that's Karen. And here's the MDM console log showing who exported and printed the audit package. She clicked. The entry showed Brent. Time. After my termination. Then Karen said the line I will never forget. Karen, Mr. Klein, earlier you told HR and counsel that Art downloaded Contraband during lunch and attempted to hide it. You said, quote, you can't prove it. Brent shifted, eyes flicking to Priya like she'd save him. Karen turned the laptop. Karen, we don't have to. The timestamps do. And then she dropped the final slide. A correlation chart of badge logs, MDM audit, EDR process tree, proxy requests, identity provider, token issuance, all aligning, all showing the same thing. The malicious action originated from a privileged administrative pathway and executed while I was physically out of the building. The room went quiet in the way rooms go quiet when a truth becomes unavoidable. The CIO looked at Priya. CIO, is this accurate? Priya, to her credit, didn't try to spin. Priya, if these logs are authentic, then yes. This is significant. Brent's voice went high, sharper than I'd ever heard it. Brent, this is a witch hunt. He's twisting technical logs. Karen, then explain the shadow admin account. Explain the self-approved privilege escalation. Explain why your screenshots have creation metadata after his termination. Explain why you restricted export of audit trails right after his removal. Brent's mouth opened, closed. He tried to pivot. Brent, even if some automation. Karen, even if? Mr. Klein, this isn't some automation. This is a deliberate scheduled task deployed to another employee's device to place contraband. Melissa looked like she might vomit. The compliance exec leaned forward. Compliance. Are you saying? Karen. I'm saying Mr. Klein framed my client. Then she added, almost casually, Karen, and we believe he did it to conceal unauthorized access and possible sale of company data. We've identified suspicious vendor warnings and a consulting payment chain connected to an LLC linked to Mr. Klein's family. That's when Brent broke. Not in a dramatic collapse. In a rage. He stood up so fast his chair scraped. Brent, you don't know what you're talking about. Karen, then answer the questions. Brent, you think you're so righteous, Art? You think you're untouchable because you follow policy? You made me look weak. The CIO's voice cut through the air like a blade. CIO, sit down. Now. Brent hesitated, and in that half second you could see it. The power shifting away from him, like a plug being pulled. He sat. His hands were shaking. And then Priya did something that told me the company had finally realized the size of the grenade in their own hand. Priya, Mr. Klein, you are instructed not to speak further without counsel. Brent blinked, like he couldn't believe he was being told to shut up. That was the moment I knew I'd won, even if I didn't have my job back yet. because the company's lawyer had just treated Brent like a liability. Aftermath, the settlement, the clearing, the consequences. It didn't end that day, but the outcome was set. Within weeks, the company withdrew their lawsuit. They agreed to a settlement. They provided a written statement clearing me of wrongdoing. They agreed to correct internal records and provide a neutral reference. They paid my legal fees and additional damages. Brent was terminated for cause. And then, because compliance people love their paper trails, they reported him. I can't share every detail. NDAs exist, and I'm not trying to get sued again, but I can say this. He didn't just lose his job. He lost the ability to quietly slide into another leadership role like nothing happened. Because the same thing that convicted him in that room, the logs, the audit trails, the immutable timestamps followed him. The part that still haunts me. You'd think clearing my name would feel like instant relief. It didn't. Because while Brent was getting publicly dismantled in executive meetings, I was still living with the shadow of those first weeks, where people believed it, where friends went cold, where coworkers treated me like contamination. Even after the company sent a clarification, not everyone apologized. Some acted like nothing happened. Some avoided me harder, like my survival made them uncomfortable. Dana did apologize. She came to my house with a coffee and tears and said she'd been terrified. I believed her. Jara texted, "I'm sorry. I should have had your back." I told him I understood, and I did, but I also didn't. Because fear is understandable, but so is the damage it does. Epilogue, optional, but real what I became after. After the settlement, the CIO reached out. He wanted me back. Not as the admin, as compliance lead. It was the most bitterly ironic offer I'd ever received, being asked to lead the thing I'd been punished for upholding. I took it, not because I loved the company. I didn't, but because I wanted one thing more than revenge. I want to make it harder for someone like Brent to ever do this again. I wrote policy that didn't allow self-approval for privileged access. I required immutable log forwarding, a mandated separation of duties. I created an incident response path that didn't run through one director's ego. I trained HR on what evidence actually means in digital investigations. And I made one rule that everyone hated until they needed it. No screenshots as primary evidence. Ever. So, AITA, here's the exact question I'm asking. AITA for refusing to share my admin credentials with my supervisor just this once, even though it would have made him happy and might have avoided him targeting me? A few people, including someone in my own family, said, "Sometimes you have to play the game. Sometimes you give a little to keep peace. Sometimes you don't make enemies." But I keep coming back to this. If I had handed Brent my credentials, I wouldn't just have been framed. I would have been guilty. Because then he could have done anything under my name and the timestamps would have still pointed to me. Except this time, they would have been telling the truth about whose credentials were used. So was I an idiot for standing on policy? Or was policy the only thing that saved me? Because in the end, it wasn't my reputation. It wasn't HR. It wasn't coworkers. It wasn't even the company. It was the cold, stupid, beautiful, immutable evidence. The timestamps. Update because people keep asking what happened to everyone, what HR said, and what Brent tried as a last-minute Hail Mary. First, thank you. Even the harsh comments helped because they reminded me what I already knew in my bones. You don't hand over admin credentials. Not just once, not to keep the peace, not to someone who treats policy like a suggestion. If I'd caved, I'd be posting a very different story, if I was posting at all. Now, onto the part you wanted. The fallout, the flying monkeys, the HR cleanup attempt, and Brent's final move. The one that almost broke my restraint. What HR said afterward, and why it made me see red. After the executive meeting, where Karen laid out the timeline, and Priya finally told Brent to shut up, I expected HR to at least, I don't know, act human. Like, we're sorry. Like, we failed you. Like, we're going to fix this. Instead, HR did what HR often does when they realize they backed the wrong horse. They try to turn a catastrophe into a policy training opportunity. Melissa, HR manager, called me 2 days later. Her voice sounded careful, like she was walking across a frozen lake. "Melissa, Arthur, I want you to know, we take this very seriously. Me, you didn't take it seriously when I said I was framed. Melissa, we followed procedure. Me, you follow Brent. Long pause. Melissa, at the time, the evidence presented. Me, screenshots. Melissa, indicated a serious violation. Me, you mean the screenshots Brent made after I was fired? She swallowed audibly. Melissa, we're reviewing our processes. Then she hit me with a sentence that lit my entire nervous system on fire. Melissa, it's important to remember we were protecting the company. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It came out like a bark. Meh, no, you were protecting yourselves. Silence. Melissa, Arthur, I understand you're upset, but me, you escorted me out like a criminal. You let people whisper my name like I was radioactive. You drafted a termination letter that implied you'd report me to law enforcement. You didn't protect the company. You protected Brent's story. Melissa started doing the HR version of remorse. Soft voice, vague language, no admission. Melissa, we regret any distress you experienced. Any distress. Like I've been mildly inconvenienced. Me. Melissa, I want something clear for the record. When you saw contraband allegations, did you involve digital forensics? Melissa, we consulted internal resources. Me, did you preserve the machine in a forensic image before anyone touched it? Melissa, our security team. Me, answer the question. Another pause. Melissa, no, of course not. Because if they had, the truth would have popped out immediately. Then she tried to pivot. Melissa, going forward, we may introduce additional training around evidence handling. Training. You can't train your way out of what they did. You can only admit it. And HR hates admitting anything that could be used in court. So yes, HR tried to frame my near destruction as a learning moment. It took everything I had not to tell her exactly what she could do with her training. What happened to the flying monkeys? Spoiler. Most did not apologize. A lot of commenters said, when this clears, everyone will come crawling back. That's not how people work. When you survive something that was supposed to kill you socially, it doesn't make people warm up. It makes them nervous. Your survival becomes a mirror. They see themselves in it, and they don't like what they see. Jared, the junior IT guy. Jared eventually apologized. Not perfectly, but sincerely. He asked to meet for coffee. When he walked in, he looked wrecked, dark circles, shoulders hunched. Jared, I'm sorry, article. I froze. Me, I know. Jared, no, you don't. Brent called me in and told me if I talked to you, I'd be part of the investigation. He said he'd make sure my career didn't go anywhere. Me, so you chose your career. Jared flinched. Jared, I did, and I hate myself for it. That hit harder than anger, because I remember being 20-something and terrified of authority. I remembered how easy it is to convince a young employee that compliance is obedience. I told him the truth calmly. Me, Brent didn't have that power. He only had the power people handed him. Jared nodded, tears in his eyes. Jared, I'm trying to make it right. I saved some things. That's when he slid a USB drive across the table, then immediately pulled it back like he realized he'd just done something risky. Me, don't give me anything. Give it to Karen. He did. And what Jared had saved ended up matching later. Dana actually came through late, but she did. She refused to write the character assassination statement. She wrote that Brent asked her to. She didn't send it to Brent. She saved it. And later, when Karen needed corroboration that Brent was building a narrative, Dana provided it. Dana Palagost. Ugly crying, trembling hands, the whole thing. Dana, I'm sorry I hesitated when you asked if I believed you. Me, that hesitation almost killed me. She nodded like she deserved that sentence. Because she did. The rest. Most people never apologized. A few sent the coward's apology. Sorry you went through that. Not, sorry I helped. Not, sorry I believed it. Not, sorry I stayed silent. Just, sorry you went through that. Like I'd gotten caught in bad weather. One guy, Martin from finance, the Brent says it's clear guy, actually tried to reattach himself after the settlement like nothing happened. He messaged me. Martin, hey Art. Crazy stuff. Glad it worked out. Drink some time. I stared at it for a full minute, then replied. Meh. No, that was it. One word. Clean. Final. What the company did publicly and how careful they were. Here's the part that will make some of you furious. The company's clearing statement was technically accurate, but emotionally sterile. It was an internal email sent by the CIO, addressed to all staff, with subject line. Update on recent IT personnel matter. Not my name. Not "we wronged Arthur." Just personnel matter. It said, paraphrasing, an internal review found no evidence that I intentionally violated policy. Certain allegations were determined to be unfounded. The company is improving processes around incident response and evidence handling. Reminded staff not to engage in gossip. Translation, we're covering our legal, but please stop talking about it. It did not say, Art was framed. Brent falsified evidence. We escorted an innocent person out of the building. It didn't even say we apologize, because apologies are admissions, and corporate lawyers don't like admissions. So the company cleared me the way a robot clears a printer jam, efficiently, without empathy. That's why the settlement mattered. The written statement to me was stronger. It was the kind of letter you can show a future employer without your hand shaking. But the public correction? It was minimal, and that's where some of my rage still lives. Brent's last-minute Hail Mary, the one that almost made me do something stupid. Okay, this is the part you asked for. After that executive meeting, after the logs pinned him to the wall, Brent realized he was done inside the company. So he tried to do the only thing left, drag me down with him one more time. He filed a complaint. Against me. Not through HR this time, through a regulatory channel tied to our industry. I'm not going to name it because I'm not inviting more problems. It wasn't a criminal complaint. It was a professional misconduct complaint, the kind that can ruin your ability to work in certain environments. And the allegation was this. I hacked the MDM console from home after being suspended and altered logs to make him look guilty. Let me translate. He tried to claim I forged the very evidence that exonerated me. It was so insane that when Karen told me, my first reaction was actually laughter. Then the laughter stopped, because even a false complaint can be a nightmare if it forces an investigation. It's time. It's stress. It's reputation. It's you explaining yourself again like you're forever stuck in that HR room. And there was a moment, just a moment, where I thought, if I could just get into one system and pull one thing to shut this down instantly. And that's the trap, right there. That's how they make good people do dumb things. That whisper, just break one rule for justice. I stood up from my desk and actually paced my living room like a caged animal. Naomi watched me like she was monitoring a storm. Naomi, what are you thinking? Me. He filed another complaint. He's claiming I altered logs. Naomi, that's impossible. Me, it doesn't matter. He wants me exhausted. He wants me to slip. Naomi stepped closer. Naomi, Art, look at me. I looked. Naomi, do not touch anything. Do not try to prove it yourself. Me, I know. Naomi, no. You feel like you need to. That's different. You're not thinking like a person. You're thinking like an admin who can fix a system. This isn't a system. It's people. She was right, and I hated it. I called Karen. She sounded delighted. Karen, good. Let him do it. Me, what? Karen. Arthur. This is desperation. And desperation leaves fingerprints. Me. But what if they open an investigation? Karen. Then we respond. With evidence. And he just gave us another motive. He's willing to weaponize official channels to smear you. That helps us. Me. How do we kill it? Karen. We don't kill it with emotion. We kill it with metadata. That night, Karen sent one of the most devastating letters I've ever seen. It laid out. My access had been suspended at a specific time. My devices were in corporate custody. Vendor logs are immutable and housed externally. The MDM audit records show Brent's session, IP, and MFA events. The identity provider shows no tokens issued to my account during the alleged tampering window. And then Karen ended with a line so polite it felt like a guillotine. We request confirmation that Mr. Klein will immediately cease making knowingly false allegations, or we will pursue all available remedies. Remedies. In lawyer speak, that means we will make this hurt you personally. Brent's complaint went nowhere. It fizzled. Quietly. Like most coward attacks do when they can't feed off fear. But that was the moment I almost broke my own rule. And I'm grateful I didn't. Because the second you just once your own ethics, you become vulnerable again. The small detail that ended up being the final nail. Remember Jared's USB drive? He didn't give it to me. He gave it to Karen. What he'd saved was something Brent never expected anyone below him to notice. A Teams chat export where Brent told a manager, "I'll handle the evidence package." Evidence package. Not investigation. Not facts. Package. And in another message. No one needs raw logs. HR won't understand them anyway. That became a theme. Brent wasn't investigating. He was producing. Those chats, combined with the vendor logs, painted a picture the company couldn't unsee. And when they couldn't unsee it, they did what organizations do when they realize one person's corruption could implicate leadership. They made Brent the sacrificial offering, which, to be clear, he earned. The part you're really asking, was I wrong to refuse the credentials? This is where I answer like an AITA post is supposed to. I don't think I'm the asshole for refusing. I think refusing is the only reason I survived. Because if I had handed him my credentials, he wouldn't have needed shadow accounts or sloppy automation. He could have done everything as me, cleanly, and then looked HR in the eye and said, "See, it's Art's account," and the timestamps would have damned me for real. So if your question is, Art, did your refusal make him angry? Yes. If your question is, Art, did your refusal cause him to target you? Probably. But if your question is, Art, was refusing the correct thing? Absolutely. Because the only way to prevent abuse of power is to refuse to give power away. Final update. What changed me? Here's what I didn't expect. I didn't become more trusting after this. I became more precise. I stopped believing in vibes. I stopped believing in they wouldn't do that. Now I believe in separation of duties, immutable logs, least privilege, no single points of failure, especially in humans. Never letting one charismatic person become the source of truth. And personally, I learned that a lot of people aren't your friends. They're your colleagues. They don't stand with you when it's dangerous. They stand with you when it's convenient. That's not bitterness. That's clarity. If this story hit you in the gut, hit the like button so more people see how easily your reputation can be nuked on evidence that isn't evidence. Comment timestamps if you want the next update, the fallout plus what happened to the coworkers who helped. And if you work in IT, HR, or compliance, share this with one person who still thinks screenshots count as proof.